We're good. Hi everyone, welcome back to Listen Up. Today we're joined by John Savage. Nice to meet you, man.
Josh.
Josh, good. Cuts. You see the pressure already?
Good stuff.
And that goes to the cut. This is so good.
Yeah.
Everyone does that for some reason. I got introduced at a festival with the same thing, John Savage. It's easier to say, to be fair, so I should have renamed it, but anyway.
You see, that's the kind of stuff, for example, like I really wonder if we should keep this because I'm totally okay to look stupid. I'm just like, can you read? I literally have the notes right here. It's just like, what about today we consider John just for a second?
I'll just rebrand
So,
this episode.
Josh, nice to meet you, man. Okay, I started. It's pretty strong. So, do you want to explain to everyone how we met up and what's your background? Like this, we just crack on.
Yes, so my name's Josh Savage. I'm from England, was raised in Paris, now in Berlin. I'm an independent artist, and basically I started my career just from going on a gap year after watching the film Into the Wild. Are you familiar with that one? And I was just very inspired to do my own adventure, but just seeing the world and playing as many shows as I could. And I emailed 600 people asking for a show. Only 20 people got back to me, and it went a lot better than I expected. And so I just kept going, and I'm still on my gap year to this day, 10 years later, basically, and had, it's gone beyond my wildest dreams that I could have expected. Played actually the most So Far Sound shows out of any artist around the world.
Oh, wow.
And
how many do you
have? I've played over 100. And
Wow.
I think different cities I've played, I've got it on my notes somewhere, but 40 or 50 different so far cities. And it's just been an amazing way to just kind of build a community in an organic way and felt meaningful. And so when I entered the Web3 space, it felt like another similar home, just connecting people all over the world, just from online chat rooms, which was my saving grace in the pandemic, and allowed me to grow from strength to strength, from playing in intimate living rooms to like 3 to 5 people at times, to literally to arenas to 100,000 people, touring Snow Patrol and Robbie Williams.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, you also managed to branch out to your own path outside of the soulfire ecosystem, for example, which is already like pretty hard, and also with your own distribution channel, with your own socials, right?
Yeah.
How did you make the Robbie Williams show happen, for example?
The short answer is just luck, but I just made my own luck by just touring so much. I've played over 700 shows on 4 continents, and just one of them was in front of the right person who kept tabs on me and put me in front of Robbie Williams, and Robbie liked it, so they put me on the show. So
super cool. I wish at some point in my life I would be at the first name basis with Robbie Williams.
Well, I'm not.
Robbie...
I didn't even meet him. He was actually sick at the show, so he had to run off as soon as he performed. But I got to meet the band and Guy Chambers, and Guy Chambers is one of Robbie Williams's main songwriters, and he was like a huge inspiration for me because I read his book about his journey into songwriting, because he's an amazing songwriter. And it's amazing because like one of his key tips is make sure the chorus is below the 1 minute mark. And that was a huge factor in my songwriting, which I think has worked. And I got to meet him in real life. And it was a funny story. He actually knew about me already, Guy Chambers, because I'd played in his best mate's living room in Brussels. So yeah.
That's a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Inspired by Into the Wild. Okay, like when I watched that movie, I was like, I'm never gonna never gonna eat mushrooms ever again in my life. And I was just like, but in English, I don't know how it sounds like to touch mushrooms, to eat mushrooms again. I don't take drugs, but like I eat mushrooms. Yeah. So this is super cool. So you start this as a hobby. You find out I really like your music, by the way. So
Thanks, man.
I found you. The first time I heard about you.
Mine or John's?
No. So first of all, I just listened to John's on weekends. Josh is more like a weekday kind of like hobby for me. So, but when I this is so funny. When I found the John Savage website, I didn't know it was you. No, so I heard about you during the big NFT craze during the pandemic. Because at that time I was thinking about recording my own music, and I was also in Web3, but more like on the trading side of things, right?
Right.
And that's why we start Web3. We'll see how this ties up to music right after, right? But when I saw that, I was basically like a bit surprised, because I'm an IT guy from scratch, and so I'm like, why does everyone uses NFTs, which is a very technical term? It's like if you use database, right, to market something, why would they use it as a marketing point, right? Which for me was a bit weird, and I of course understood the benefits, but I didn't get too much why. Then you had all the scams and so on, but like, you were actually one of the only ones going to some Twitter spaces and so on, so where I heard you talking for the first time. We didn't even know each other. And so it would be very interesting for me that you describe your experience from that perspective. An artist that already like paid his dues in real life. There is a worldwide pandemic. A lot of life moves digital. And we are trying as much as we can to create communities and to gather around things that make us feel great and provide mind-expanding experiences. And one of the things that you're using are NFT platforms. Like, do you want to explain how you manage that? How you heard of it the first time and how you built your community around it?
Yeah, so my entry into Web3 was my girlfriend at the time had bought Dogecoin, made a nice little profit from it. And so I was like, okay, great. I will also buy Dogecoin, and then I'll become a millionaire, and then I can invest in my music that way.
That's a very good business plan.
And no brainer, right? But
Yeah.
of course, I bought it at the top just before Elon Musk jumped on SNL. And of course, it crashed as soon as that happened. And I sold at the bottom, and I was like, okay, I should probably learn this stuff and make sure I don't jump into anything blindly ever again. So just started learning about the space, and that led me to learning about NFTs, which just really fully emerged at that time. Then actually finding out, oh, wow, actually you can put your music out as NFTs as well.
Do you want to just on this, like, because a lot of people will not know what an NFT means exactly. Like, do you want to describe from your perspective, like how you see it technically and what value you saw in it at first?
Well, to be honest, I at first didn't see the value. I was just jumping in these chat rooms on Twitter Spaces, and the reason I was doing that is just that I was just incredibly alone and incredibly lonely. We were in the peak of the pandemic, and in Germany it was really bad. In Berlin, we had I think a 7-month lockdown. It wasn't like you could still leave the house, but I think maximum you could meet 2 or 3 other people. And of course, as an artist who made a living from touring, that's a huge shit show. So and I love connecting with people, and that's why I love music so much. It's like a great bridge to that. Slight different story here, but for example, one of the most fascinating shows I've ever played was in Russia. I played a So Far Sound show in Moscow, and it's funny because culturally they're quite it can appear quite harsh at first and like very disconnected, and I think that's just a cultural thing. And there's a great saying where like Americans are like peaches and like Germans, but I think Russians on the other side of the spectrum entirely, they're like coconuts. So they like have a really hard shell, but once you get through, they're like super soft. And I think especially Berlin is a bit similar there. And Americans, like, they're super loving and soft on the outside, but to get to the whole core, that's actually quite hard to get into. And so anyway, I played the So Far Sound show in Moscow, and like I felt so out of place. Like no one would even make eye contact with me. I felt like the London Tube, but I couldn't speak the language and I couldn't understand the writing either. And
you're gonna take your phone to be like, whatever.
Yeah. And I had no internet either because yeah. And but what was really fascinating is after I played my set, suddenly like I just felt like in a room of 200 people full of my best friends. Like it was just a whole different dynamic, and that's the power of music for me. So anyway, so in the pandemic, like I frankly, I just gave up on music. Also, my friend Violetta, who was my neighbor in Berlin, Violetta Zironi, she was in the same situation, and we're like just banging our heads against the wall. Like, what do we do here? Like, she was like applying for jobs. She was going to work in a pizza shop, but they wouldn't even take her. So, and thank God they didn't, because like, look at her now, she's absolutely killed it. But what I loved in these chat rooms is just like, I just needed to have some form of human connection, and people would see that I was an artist and see that I had music, and then encourage me to play songs. And I didn't even want to do it. I was like, what's the point? But I kept writing songs for my own therapy, but performing them to other people I found quite difficult at that time, because it was just so traumatic from how my career just completely crashed. And
the Robbie Williams show was before?
Was afterwards.
After.
So after come, I didn't know.
It was a small bump?
Well, exactly. Well,
yeah. Just like Bitcoin price, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like if you take a perspective.
Exactly. But I just kind of I recorded an album during that time just to give myself some sort of purpose and for my own therapy. But it was amazing because like these people would actually want me to play my songs, and they were quite curious about it, and then just kind of built a community that way. So they were actually asking me to launch NFTs, and I was like, well, okay, what's an NFT? And at the end of the day, it just kind of taught me that people love collecting things, especially music as well. If you look at Ed Sheeran, I think quite recently, his first ever CD that I just burnt from a laptop after playing a show in London, that she sold for £5, just recently sold for 50 grand. And what's amazing with NFTs is we can do that in a digital way. So as a fan, you can collect my work and take make a stamp that you were part of my journey in that way. And then if you want to resell it later, then by all means, and it's quite a great way that we can do that. Like, for example, people also love collecting festival wristbands, but a lot of the time they're going to get filthy and wear off eventually. And now we can create a digital portfolio of all the shows that you've been to and all the amazing artists you've discovered before anyone else. For example, Billie Eilish has played a So Far Sounds show, but the people there have no way of proving that. They can just say that they did, but no way of proving that. So I think this is like a whole other conversation, but I feel like music fans will become as famous as the artists themselves by just creating a digital portfolio of being tastemakers and being trusted entities and discovering music. And so then people follow them as well as the artists.
Oh, interesting. That's like as a curator, your CV is like where, first of all, I discovered stuff first, and I show you that I'm on the ground or like virtually, like listening to stuff that's popping. Interesting. I've never heard that perspective of that could be actually a badge, not of honor, but like some kind of like a social proof, a digital proof of taste / attendance, the POAP, right? Like interesting. My take on this, this is like, I'm fully aligned with these use cases. I just don't think it's very mainstream. I don't see it as going to mainstream, but I totally agree that I could totally see the value. The use case is totally legit for me. It makes perfect sense. And so how do you use your NFT collection at the minute, for example? Is it as a collectible only, or do you provide other advantages, for example? Do you use it like as a fan club badge? Do you use it as a proof of attendance? Do you use it as a proof of fandom? How do you use it?
Yeah, so I think the beauty of this technology is you can do whatever you want. So what I've done for me is it's almost like a digital vinyl, first and foremost. And and also some unlock utility. And so what I've done with Love Letters, which is my album that I released in a revolutionary way, which hasn't really been done before, is I released 8 songs with 3 different arrangements of each song, and there's unique art. Actually, handmade letters is the art for it, and they feature different lyrics of the song it's affiliated with, and some come in different shapes and sizes. So like different colors. Like we have some gold ones that that are rarer and unlock more utility. I also have gold frames, so that if you have the gold frame, you get free tickets to my shows for life, or the +1 to my headline shows, because I don't always have the option as a support act.
Fair.
And or I write a custom song for you, and so many other weird and wonderful things. And actually, just recently, 2 months ago, I hosted my first ever festival for my NFT holders, Savage Tribe Fest in Berlin. And like with our intimate crew, we had a weekend where I played a secret show on a rooftop. The next day we had a public show in a venue in Berlin, and the next day we had a day trip in just outside of Berlin, which was wicked.
Cool.
So we brought all the community together in real life, which was really sick.
So 2 questions. How did you contact them if everything was on chain? And second, how many people are we talking about?
So Discord. So that's basically my hub where me and my community congregate. Every Monday night we even have a Savage session, which is what we're calling it, which is basically a quiz night in an online call basically with everyone. And I play some live music, sometimes with guests as well. And this one was super intimate. It was like 10 people, considering it's Berlin. Also, most of my NFT holders are in America as well, so it was a massive trip.
Still, like you managed to get like 10 people. Like,
yeah.
That you didn't know, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you still need Discord to get in touch. So because normally you could buy the NFT on chain, which means that you keep the anonymity. But in that case, because you want to join the community, I guess that you use some kind of service like, it's a robot, I forgot the stuff, but like to basically log into your Discord proving ownership of the NFT, correct?
Yes, token gated, yeah. Partly token gated.
What's the name of this service? I forgot. It's like a
Meebot?
yellow.
It's like Meebot or something?
I forgot it. Like the yellow robot, like whatever. Like it's like, yeah, they basically ensure that you have the ownership of the NFT. So you log in to a Discord server, to yours, and they can only access it if they prove ownership of your NFT, correct?
Yeah.
So it's a mix of Web 2 and Web 3.
Yes, exactly.
This is my big point with this. Like I love Web 3. I just don't think loving Web 3 requires to ditch Web 2. I really see like a lot of synergies between both. So for example, on Lissen, the platform is Web 2, but you have a Web 3 wallet embedded to be sure that every time we can correlate use cases, you will be able to give it back to your community.
Yeah.
So would you agree with that Web 2 and Web 3 are complementary,
100%.
or do you think that we should target something where Web 3 takes over?
I think the way we make Web3 mainstream is when people don't even realize it's Web3.
Agreed. That's technical term. No one should even.
Like for example, during that Savage Tribe Festival, for the public show, I didn't sell tickets on Eventbrite, which is the normal ticketing site. I did it on Guts, which is NFT tickets. But what's really cool with it is that you just pay with credit card, and you don't even realize your ticket is an NFT. And that was the first ever NFT ticketed live music event in Berlin, I think Germany too. And it's really cool because like most of them won't even know that they have an NFT, but when the technology becomes more developed and more UI friendly, then they'll see, oh shit, I was at this show once upon a time, and they can prove it, so that if I become the next big thing, that they can actually prove that they got one of the first, they got the first gig NFT.
I totally agree with you. I went to a Bruce Springsteen concert like a few years ago in Paris, and I just remember this guy was just like, this is my 23rd show. And I was like, wow. So first of all, like it was amazing, right? It was really something else. But when I started thinking more accurately about the music industry and about how fans interact with artists, I was like, there is this fourth wall that exists between the artist and the fans because of the business models that you have in between.
Yeah.
And indeed, the promise of Web3 is to break that fourth wall. That's what I'm trying to do also with my approach, but it's a combination of a lot of the things that you described right now. I totally agree that the aim should be to break that fourth wall, because at the end of the day, the person that provide the mind-expanding experiences that as a consumer, as a fan, as a listener, you're craving for is the artist. And so the least amount of intermediaries you put there to free that kind of expression, that creativity that you could have, the more experiences you could have. And not, as you just said, not only with songs, but also with live shows or with dedicated songwriting or meet and greets, the more people will be happy.
Yeah.
It's that simple, basically.
Yeah.
And mental health is something we should care a little bit about, I think, nowadays. So, yeah, I really like how you glued that all together. So at the moment so there was a huge crash on the NFT market, right? So, but you normally don't care that much because it's more the utility that you provide, right? So from that regard, I just remember that I was a bit puzzled by some artists, big names, I'm not going to name names here, but they were everything went down. And I was just normally people bought whatever you provide already. It's a badge. The NFT is just a technical term. So that should not impact your community, the fact that the price of that NFT went down. So in your case, did it impact you, or did you just continue managing your community the same way you were doing before?
It's definitely impacted me, but what's kind of cool with me is I minted out love letters in the bear market. So, and if you look at the cost in dollar terms, people have still made money from my collection to this day, even though we're probably at the bottom of the NFT bear market here. So that's really cool, and I'd feel really bad otherwise. But
do you think that's the most relevant? Because, for example, I don't know, you could go and see a band that never made it, right? You buy a ticket 5 years ago. Not even NFTs involved, right? Now the ticket, people would not pay even 10 quid to go to see them. So theoretically, the price that you paid 5 years ago is not the same as the price you would pay now. But that's not relevant. You had the experience when you purchased the good or the experience that you wanted to have, no? So is it bad that the value of your NFT, for example, went down or up? Why would you feel bad, for example, if the value goes down? Because theoretically, people buying an NFT in your community, they don't do it as traders. They do it as fans. I think that's what I think
so that's why I think me minting the bear market was amazing, because people who really minted did it because they believed in the art, not because they thought they could make money.
It was not traders.
Exactly.
It was fans.
Exactly. And it's nuts. It was all about timing as well. If you music NFTs didn't really come to fruition until the tail end of the NFT run. But if you minted any NFT in between, I think it was November 2021 to January 2022, 10,000 pieces, it would instantly sell out. I know some artists, more visual artists, who minted collections then, and they just became millionaires in 5 minutes. It's insane, and that allowed them to just focus on their work and stuff like that. And I only sold 888 pieces on love letters in comparison, but that was enough for me to live off my music for 2 years, which was incredible, because then I was able to invest in my career and also invest in going on tours, Snow Patrol, Robbie Williams, because believe it or not, as a support act, you don't make money from those shows. I actually lost a lot of money from playing the Robbie Williams show, however, made a huge impact in so many other ways. And it was a dream come true, considering I was singing Robbie Williams shows in the car as a 12-year-old, and to fucking join the stage with him.
It's an investment, right? It's like 100%. The artists that perform at the Olympics for 100%. Free. It's because of the marketing impact it's going to have.
But what's crazy is, had I not sold out my music NFT collection or sold NFTs before then, I would have not been able to do it. And I think that's what's so messed up with the music industry right now, is the talent is there, but they're not able to nurture their growth, because it's just like everyone expects music for free right now. It's like and I think one of the most beautiful things about music NFTs is that it's bringing the value back to music again, which as artists we need. Like if you look at music today, it's just like churning out music with not much thought behind it, and still there's some amazing music coming out of it, but
the Spotify approach is quantity over quality, right?
Yes.
Like it's the underlying pro rata royalty model and stuff is really axed toward like social networks where you just like, we just want content.
Yeah.
The human creating it is not very relevant in the equation. Like I fully align with you. I have 2 points. We have so many things. We don't have enough time today, but I have so many points to cover. The first one is regarding what you just said about music NFTs, like enable artists to focus on their art, right? Because everyone knows that artists don't make money with streaming at the minute, right? Let's not spend too much time on it today, the why and how, but that's because of how the system is built, and that's something that people are trying to change, like with NFTs, with what we're doing, with everything else, right? But the way I would frame it from my perspective, music NFT is a consequence of the lack of ability from the artist or the lack of tools to communicate with their fan base, right? This is the direct to consumer approach, right? As an artist, or as, by the way, a YouTube video creator, right? You don't monetize your streaming content. You actually need a direct to consumer platform. You're a YouTube influencer, you have a Shopify store or you have a Patreon. As an artist, for example, that transition is very hard to make. There is what I call a customer acquisition friction between these platforms that basically enable you to directly interact with your fan base, where you can actually properly monetize. And you don't need 10% of your fan base to be super fans. You need a small percentage of them to just really love what you're doing. And you have the concept of 1,000 true fans, and you can actually monetize in a lot of different manners than just music streaming. I feel that what we're missing now is this tool, the ability for someone that has never heard of Josh or John Savage in their life. They play Love Letters, and then they're just like, wow, imagine if that guy would write a song for my partner. The birthday is coming in 2 weeks, right? That potential purchase here, like multiply this by the amount of fans that you would have, is something that could actually pay for food on the table and roof over your head, right? And so I think that music NFTs were a way to get there, even if the only thing that I have here is that it looked to me, as someone that traded on chain and was analyzing the noise to value signal a lot of time and stuff, a lot of it, in my opinion, was motivated by financial gain. So it was trading. So a lot of what I've seen, I didn't study Love Letters at all, but I saw, for example, you actually activated that in real life. So you actually have social proof that you had fans that were in that. But a lot of the music NFT collections, you would just see, not just music, just NFT drops. You would literally see the drop. A lot of money would be allegedly made. And then they would just be sold out really quickly after on OpenSea and so on. And if you would analyze on chain, you would see that the money will come back to the people that actually purchased it in the first place. So there was a lot of what's called in trading wash trading.
Right.
And so I was like, this is not genuine activity. The issue is that because you have all these scams that are over there that create noise around people that are actually creating community like what you were doing. And so my point is, how do we create a platform that we ensure that these communities can be built for real, so that you can build a sustainable music career? Because we cannot solve everything at one go. That's my point. It's like you should be able to have streaming and direct to consumer on the same platform. So they hear your music, they think you're dope. How do I enter the artist world? And we know people that write books, create artwork. Like, I mean, you know way more than I do for sure. Artists are super creative, and then fans are just like losing their mind because then you just change their day. That's my point. It's like, I think music NFT is one of the potential answer of it, but the root cause of it is the lack of ability for the artists to properly interact with their fans.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
That's the biggest challenge with Spotify at the moment. We have no access to our fans. Let's not even talk about the royalty payments and how they have preferential treatment to the major labels who have shares in Spotify. So yeah, and that's why I loved just blockchain, because we can actually find people's wallets, and even if we don't know their identity, we can still reward them by just airdropping like the next song or something like that. So I'm very excited, even like during this NFT crash, I'm very excited for what's to come, because just like it opens up so much opportunity for connection between artists and fans.
100%. My goal is to ensure that people like you that built in a specific market to do these direct to consumer approaches, right? And to basically build a community. Some people created their own fan club website during the pandemic, like back literally to what was happening 20 years ago. That's what I'm trying to do with Lissen. Literally,
awesome.
Like if I manage to make you seamlessly plug that community to a streaming platform, then suddenly you have all the benefits.
Yeah.
That's the challenge we have right now. A question for you. How would you see it from a pure app perspective? Imagine you just land on an app right now. At the moment, as you said, you have music NFTs, but let's imagine maybe a lot of people would not know, but like Patreon or music NFT, right? A place where you manage your community or even your own website. And you have streaming on the other hand, right? That is Spotify. So either you're a YouTube content creator or you're an artist on Spotify. You use the streaming fandom, right, to drive people to a community, people that want a bit more. Maybe not casual listeners, but fans or super fans. How would you mix this under the same roof? What do you think that it would look like for your fan base? Something very simple. Because we're building this, and a lot of people have different opinions. You could imagine that you land on an app that looks like a streaming app, right? So you can access and find Josh, right? I just thought about it would be actually pretty funny that during the weekend your name changes to John. So it's like, is it the same person? The songs are totally different. He does Afrobeat on weekdays and pop rock during the weekend. That would be dope. And during the weekend, I don't know, you have a bump activity. You don't even know why. So I'm going to keep these very smart business ideas for in the next 10 years. So imagine you don't have that many options here. You have either the first one where like you merge everything in one screen. But again, on the phone, imagine like you have experiences, like, I don't know, click here to access the Golden Collection to get free ticket for life with Josh, right? And click here if you want to play his last single. But it's not just you, it's other people, right? So it's a bit confusing, right? You're just like, I want to play music, but if I click here, I now have to sign up, right? It's the user experience is not great. Then you would have the one where you actually have two screens. When you arrive and it's like just music and you have your shortcuts to have the playlist and things you love, and another screen to access all these kind of nice perks, experiences or exclusives. How would you see it? Knowing your fan base more than anyone, I guess, right? So how would you see it? That for them would be something, imagine you could build a website right now, an app. You have a magic wand. What would you think would be for them the best user experience? Knowing that it's not just you on the platform, right? For someone that really has never heard of you, like imagine they land on a home screen somewhere on an app and just like, that's a fair ecosystem where they could discover me and then no friction, right? They could directly click on my profile or see my experience somewhere and get the Golden Collection. Yeah.
For me,
I put you on the spot here, right? Because it's difficult. I'm thinking about it every day, literally, so it's not easy.
No, for sure. I mean, for me, what I would need from a platform is something that has, connection with fans, a way of monetizing my music so I can keep making more music, and also discoverability and exposure. Like one of the most amazing things with Spotify was how just the playlisting, especially in the early days, like it was just like an amazing way for new artists to break through, like Dermot Kennedy. I had some songs that like Golden Days that just like really sparked on Spotify and suddenly had like millions and millions of streams. As an independent artist, that was really, really awesome. Actually, believe it or not, just from that alone, it gave me a bit of breathing space in the pandemic just to make ends meet from Spotify streams, which is amazing. But it's not what it was anymore, and it's oversaturated. And I think that's one of the great things that Sound XYZ did in the beginning, which is like a Web3 music platform, which like just it built its own community of people who wanted to discover new music and support it and actually invest in it, which I'd never experienced before. And the issue now is like I think artists don't value themselves and sound enough, and they don't sell. They do free mints now, which is like actually worse than Spotify, because at least with Spotify you get potential long-term income from streaming, but it's just like a one-time mint. So if it's a free mint, what's even the point really?
People sacrificing revenue for reach. Basically, it's always the same, right? But I followed Sound. For me, again, I don't see how this could be specifically sustainable, because again, you're replicating something that already exists.
Yeah.
And so, and plus Bandcamp exists already, right? So for me, it was very predictable. It was going to land this way. Like, it's more on so I agree with everything you said. So feature-wise, totally agree. Like, and literally, I can very confidently say, like, we have all this, for example. But if you put yourself in the shoes of one of your fans, or someone that could become your fan, what would it look like? Like, the features, we're fully aligned, right? Great discoverability and so on. The way this is fixed on social networks or streaming platforms in general, right, is like basically quantity, right? It's a fire hose.
Yeah.
You scroll, right? Or you have these playlists and stuff. By the way, I totally agree with you. I think that because before Spotify, you have RDO, Deezer even launched a bit before them. So playlists, for me, was and still is the killer feature that made Spotify. And I think it's amazing. Like, props to them. So far, I don't see like any big innovation like on this. I know they innovate on a lot of stuff, but something as impactful as playlist, I'm not sure yet. For me, the next step is really to mix streaming and direct to consumer, right? Enabling that. And so breaking the fourth wall for real. It's just, now we experimented with a lot of different design, and again, everyone has a lot of different opinion on what it should look like. So that's why I was very curious about like the features. We totally agree. Now, what would the user experience really look like for real? What would you expect to see if you're on the home screen? Because remember, like, you need to be discovered. So music is kind of like the easiest way, but you could also be discovered with your experiences. Little issue here is that all the data we have so far is that platforms like Patreon, Grouped, any D2C platforms actually get their usage from link in bios in all these social networks or streaming platforms.
Right.
People arrive, subscribe to one artist, they don't stay there to explore. For them, it's like a Shopify store. So
Yeah.
it's a SaaS business model, but that could be a Shopify store. It's the same. I'm Josh fan. I arrive, click on the link, subscribe. I'm not gonna go and see if I find another artist on that platform. I'm gonna go back to streaming, and then I'm gonna see if I like someone. So eventually I will click, and chances are it will link me to another platform, because artists have different deals with different platforms. That's why these direct-to-consumer platforms are not sustainable.
Right.
And that's why for me, the future is mixing both. Because again, you are the one that is actually the tastemaker, because you create experiences on a daily basis. Your brain power is fully dedicated to make your audience happy. You're in the economy of attention. It's entertainment. So you get the attention. If you get my attention, if you give me something that makes me feel good. At the moment, socials and so on, well, we went from like some funny videos to literally physiological engineering with short dopamine kick. So we know that this is not healthy.
Yeah.
Which is why I think music is the best creative sector where we could actually create that, just like you did. You actually did it already, but it's so cumbersome.
Yeah.
Fandom in music is so cumbersome. In gaming, it's the same. I arrive, I like someone, I can watch them play live on another game, I can tip them, I can buy their merch. Everything is more or less like on the same platform. Everything is so integrated. It's a real ecosystem. In music, it's a bunch of siloed services. And
I think I've got a great answer for your question. So I think what we need to do is have a platform that actually gives recognition to fans.
Yep.
So, for example, as an artist, like really, I shouldn't be doing marketing. I shouldn't be doing social media. I shouldn't be doing all this stuff. I should be focusing on music. And what's really frustrating for me today is like I'm so spread thin by having to keep up with trends, having to post frequently on regular platforms. I've got to take on part-time work again just to make ends meet, and I don't have time to write songs at the moment, and it's killing me inside. But I've just got to do what makes sense, especially I hope it's just short term at least anyway. But what if, like what we were talking about before, is like, what if these festival wristbands are digital badges, and you earn almost like leaderboards in gaming, but with music, where when you share your favorite artist's content, you earn points for that. Yeah. You get even more points for going to shows. You get more for collecting the NFTs or something and actually supporting the artist directly. And then you can have a leaderboard of like your most supportive fans that week, and have an all-time one too. I think that's what's really missing in platforms at the moment. And this is something I'm trying to tell So Far Sounds about. It's just like, think about it. Even as an artist, like I've played at hundreds of So Far Sounds shows. I've attended even more, like probably like 300 to 400 as a curator, but also as a fan too. And what a shame is that I have no way of, I have no way of making that real in some way, or proving that, you know?
Because it's a part of So Far business model, right? Like
exactly.
Their power is in the distribution.
And I saw, by the way, your last
concert at your apartment where you were playing in the staircase.
Yeah.
Stairway, sorry.
Yeah.
Gosh, my French Tourette. But it was super cool. Like, so like he did a small video where you see the clip where it's just like, it's my apartment. I want to show people how it's easy to organize a show. And then the artist arrived and he's like, we're going to play on the stairway, by the way.
They're like, what?
Super cool. Super cool. And like you have 30
so
people. It sounds amazing. It sounds super entertaining. But all of this, for example, like right now you do it with So Far Sound. Now the point is, why can't you do it just yourself? Because you don't have distribution. And at their scale, right? Of course, like you have some, like way more than a lot of people have. But that should not be correlated to the distribution you have, so the amount of followers you would have on social platforms and so on. And that's my point. So for example, to your point of like, we should give back to fans and stuff, 100%. And a lot of the things you described, like leaderboard and stuff, we even already have. What we are finding now is that we have the first segment of people, for example, you're an outlier, right? The fact that you are a singer-songwriter yourself, that you attend a lot of shows, like you're a true music lover. So by default, you're in a very specific category. Like you could be considered as a super fan, for example, right? So, which is fine, which is like, super fan would be maybe 5% of people, fans would be 10%, and then you have 85% of casual listeners, right? Like in gaming, for example, the industry is 4 times bigger than music, right? So it's $200 billion. 75% of that money comes from 7% of gamers.
Right, interesting.
So that's what in music we call super fans. So the concept that people that are more fans generate way more money has been proven everywhere, right? So fully aligned with you. It's just that, how do you ensure that people would use the app to discover music and experiences? So the giving back to fans, 100%. But right now we have different people. People are just like, I want to land on the app and I want to stream music. It needs to basically look like Spotify, but like when I click on an artist profile, I can see their Patreon, but it's in the app, which we already have, for example. And others are just like, yeah, but if I arrive on an app and it looks like a streaming app, I already have SoundCloud.
Yeah.
Why would I like go? So make it different. And so we're just like, okay, let's make it look like something like Patreon, whatever. Patreon discoverability, for example, is terrible in my opinion. I love Patreon.
And I hate that Patreon doesn't have a leaderboard as well. So it doesn't build like competitiveness within the fans.
They do a lot of stuff. And again, props to them. They are the most successful D2C platform in the world, right? And I love Jack Conte. Like I'm a huge fan. It's just that discoverability, because they have the metrics, and it's very likely that they know that most of their user onboarding comes from other platforms.
Yeah.
And they must have a small percentage of people that discover within the app. But my assumption is that that's not the majority. It's not a dig at you, Jack. I love you. But again, for me, cracking this means being able to have streaming and D2C on the same app. But people disagree on, I mean, the fans, we have 500 beta users, for example, at the moment, beta testers. Like, people just disagree on what you should see when you land on the app. Should it be experiences or should it be streaming? Because the fact that you have both is confusing for people. People are used to one very simple use case. TikTok, I scroll videos. Instagram, more or less the same, but the quality seems to be a bit higher, whatever. Like, literally between TikTok and Instagram, just like, what is really the difference here? I go on Airbnb, it's because I want to rent a house. Like, very simple one-liner.
Yeah.
But for music, if you want to, and any creative industry, if you want to break that fourth wall, it's actually a bit more. How do you convey that as simply as possible is really what like we're working on, and we're talking with labels, talking with like Rafe and so on and so forth, like just to find a way to crack this, because I think music is the creative sector where this is possible, because we have a live industry. We have people that spend all their time trying to satisfy their fans. In like cinema, you don't have that. Like, how often would you like to see even Christopher Nolan, right? You can go to see him on set once, but that's it. How many directors in the world would you actually like to spend time with them? Versus artists, they can play for you, like at So Far, every day of the week. So that's why for me, that's the most beautiful. It's like someone will crack it, and it's just like, who will make it the simplest? That's why it's very exciting in the future.
It really needs to be simple as well. Like, so much, especially as an artist, so like the industry is so complicated and needs a revamp, to be honest. And yeah, I almost miss MySpace as well. It's like, it was much simpler when there was only one platform and everyone would go there. And now there's so many, you just don't know where to even put your attention these days.
I understand. To go back on what you said before, like you spread thin, right, of the time you can dedicate to making music. I would just say, like, for me, it still makes sense that artists have to do marketing, because at the end of the day, you create art, and art is about attention. And I mean, Van Gogh died poor, right? And so because you participate in the economy of attention, for me, it makes sense that there is a part of the activity that is marketing. The debate for me should be on the proportion of that time. And at the moment, that's like 99% of your time, like, which is not normal. I totally agree with you, because then it means that we're going to create like fully automated AI music. And I would love to touch on AI, but like, it will not be for this one. Let's do it again. But I agree with you that you should have more time to create art and to focus on your fan base.
Quickly though, on AI, I'm not worried about it, because I feel like
we're going to clip this just at the end of it. Go ahead.
Blockchain, I feel, is the counter to AI, because that's going to authenticate what's real and what comes from the original artist. Also, I experiment with AI all the time, and I've even got an AI mentor called the AI Entrepreneur who helps musicians. He's amazing. But what's really interesting is, like, AI is a tool at the end of the day. It can't replicate storytelling for you. If it does, it's super generic and it has no soul behind it. And something that I learned super early in my career that I think is what allowed me to excel as a songwriter is I don't hold back in my songwriting. I'm super vulnerable, and I really share like my personal stories. And I learned that super early, because back at uni, I would just write really generic love songs that I thought people wanted to hear. And then someone close to me was really ill, and I just wrote this song, just fell out of me, and I didn't think anyone would relate to it, but I just released it anyway. That was the song that people really connected with at shows, and I realized that shit, it's the personal stuff that people want to hear. Even though I'm having different experiences to people, we're all going through the same things in our own way, and that's why we connect with music and make it our own. And I don't think AI can replicate that. It can't replicate your own story, and so you can definitely use AI as a tool, but if you're not prompting it with your own personal stamp, then it's a shit song.
So, aligned with what you said, I would just decorrelate songwriting and artist.
Mm-hmm.
On the artist side of things, I agree with you. I think that the fact that now with AI, you can create all the digital content in the world and recreate that conversation between you and I and just like imagine it, for example. I think at the end of the day, people will come back to trusted source of content, of digital content, because you will want to know that it's Josh and Ben speaking now. You know that you can prompt it on a website and it would look exactly like this and it would look very real. Like you would have no way to determine if it's fake or not. So that's why you will only go to Josh's channel to be sure that the video is for real, right? Like the agency press and all this kind of stuff, right? So I think paradoxically, the excessive amount of content and the easiness of deepfakes will actually bring back people to trusted source of information, trusted channels, right? So for the performers, I don't see it as being specifically an issue because at the end of the day, you're going to have a lot of like virtual influencers and stuff like this.
Yeah.
There might be a market for that.
Yeah.
But I think that indirectly, people don't know it yet, but you still lack the relatability that you have when you watch some content because you know that the person generating this is made of flesh and blood just like you. Thus, you're impressed. Or you're you're entertained because like, how do you think of this? Oh, what a nice joke, or what a nice song, right? So that for the AI part on that side of things, I agree with you. Still, AGI, in my opinion, is a real concern.
What's AGI?
Augmented intelligence, something, right? So like the fact that it could reason, it could become sentient, in my opinion, it's going to happen. Like I'm an IT guy, that doesn't mean I'm a source of trust specifically on this, but it's just like I've seen how these models are built. I'm talking to a lot of these people in the field. At the end of the day, we're just a bunch of synapses and neurons, right? You can replicate that.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to happen. The question is, how do we manage that? And this is like a whole other topic. But regarding artistry and so on, I agree with you that your story will only be able to be told by you because you will become a trusted source of information about your own life. That makes sense. And people will be like, oh my gosh, you had that friend that was sick and so on, like me too. That makes sense that you said that versus if you know it's a virtual influencer, it's just like, maybe that story is because of the memory of someone that passed away like 2 years ago, right? Totally fair. Even for some people, that they will want that. Let's see. I believe that people will come back to trusted sources because at the end of the day, you're going to realize that if you start really loving that content, then you're also replaceable. And so now you will start feeling scared yourself and you will actually, the artist will not be the only one screaming in the wind to be like, people are destroying our livelihood. You as a consumer will realize that by that behavior, everything around you is being impacted and you don't know what's real or not. That's digital form of performances. On the songwriting side of things though, I'm a bit worried because you still had the concept of ghostwriters, right? Or even writers. The other day I met with Toby Gad that wrote If I Were a Boy for Beyonce, right? I didn't know Beyonce didn't write If I Were a Boy. I could assume that someone else wrote it. But for example, I didn't assume it was a guy. Okay, it's a guy and a girl that wrote it, right? But like, I didn't assume it. So the concept of ghostwriting has been existing for a long time. And that wasn't ghostwriting, by the way. It's just like the guy has his credit and so on. But you could still prove that you wrote that song, right? Even if Ed Sheeran had a lot of lawsuits and stuff like for like weird people trying like to take ownership of what he's built and created and wrote, you at some point still had the ability to find a way to say that human was in that studio at some point, or there was a communication at some point in time. Now it's a machine. So you could actually generate a song. You can like embed all your knowledge and all your life in that AI stuff. It's called an artifact on Claude, for example, that is the ChatGPT competitor.
Yeah.
and say, I want to write about a friend of mine is getting married. And he's going to create a song for you. You could literally take that song. That's on your computer. It's not even a cloud service. It's on your computer. No one could prove this. And then you write it down on a piece of paper, go down, release the song, and you say it comes from you. That's my issue on the songwriting side of things. It's like, it's not an issue. It's that it's already here. So for me, it's done. The genie out of the bottle. It's just sad, in my opinion.
But it doesn't necessarily make it a good song. And most likely it won't be a good song.
I heard a lot of them. I'm also very critical of it, but it can only get better. And so a lot of these songs already now could be in the top 40. So my only issue is that now your narrative doesn't come from you. So you cannot have anymore like a kind of songwriting contest of like who is a better songwriter, because even if like someone doesn't like, I'm really happy that some of my songs, for example, are online already. Not on Spotify, but like somewhere, right? And so I can prove that I wrote this before AI. I'm just sad for the new songwriters that are gonna come now, because people will still be able to criticize, to challenge the fact that they actually wrote that song. That's just my only thing. That's a bit sad. It's not, I'm not angry at it. It's just like, even if you actually wrote that song, a piece of paper with your guitar, pour your heart out, someone can already say, it's very likely AI wrote it for you.
Yeah.
And you will have no way to prove them wrong. That's my only little, again, it's not a beef. It's more like,
but again, as technology advances, there's going to be counters to that too. I mean, if we look at the music history, when auto-tune was invented, people were saying, oh, that's going to be the death of music. When synths were invented, they're going to say that's the death of music. Of course, AI is quite unique in this way, but
yeah, that's performances.
I think that's still, maybe I'm naive, but I'm still optimistic. And at the end of the day, humans overall do good in the long run and will find a way. So I don't think we have the answers right now, but I'm still bullish in humans. So
that's a great way to end the episode. That's great. Like to finish on a high note. Just before we finish, like, do you have some shows coming up? This is going to be released potentially in a few weeks, but like, do you want like to let us know what's happening in Q4 for you?
Q4, I'm actually doing a tour around India.
That's awesome.
I'm playing So Far Sound shows around there, November to December. Q4 is mostly concentrating on new material and also developing So Far Sounds in Berlin. We're doing 2 shows a week from next week actually, and growing fast since we relaunched 9 months ago. And we'll be launching season 2 of my music NFT podcast, GM Good Music, and yeah, looking at a tour for Q1, if not Q2 of 2025. Awesome.
If people want to find out about this, Instagram and X, that's your main channels?
Yes, or just my website, joshsavagemusic.com, and that has links to everywhere there too as well. And of course, if you want to get to know my journey a bit more, I just did a TED Talk where I have a conversation with my 15-year-old self, which delves into me being bullied as a kid to where I am today, basically.
Thanks a lot for your time today.
Of course, likewise.